Welcome to the Horror Friendly Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Horror Friendly Podcast, part of the You Run Podcast Network. I am joined by my wonderful co-host, Chantelle.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. How was your birthday?
It was good. Yeah. Very I was just telling you before this. I was at roller derby training and they made me wear a balloon the whole time. So, the usual fun.
Usual, yeah. Well, I'm sure all the listeners are looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, I'll have to see if I can get a clip of it.
Yes.
Because there was lots of pictures and that taken of me. So we shall see.
Definitely. I, for one, would love to see that. So
I'll ping it over. How was your weekend then?
It's good, yeah, just birthdays and now just getting ready for Christmas. It's December now, Tal. So
I think we say this every year. It doesn't feel it. Like, does it feel festive yet?
I don't know, I'm getting there, like
Yeah.
we've decorated in here, so it's starting to feel a bit more Christmassy. And I've watched a couple of Christmas films, so I'm getting there, but slowly but surely.
Yeah, I think normally we kick off, like our town does a Christmas market, and we normally kick off going to that. And we missed it this year because we were busy. So I think that we kind of missed our like starting point. And now I'm just like, but it's not Christmas because we haven't been to the market yet. So I feel like we've got ages and I'm like, shit, I really need to get some shopping done.
Yeah, shopping. And, we'll be covering a Christmas film at some point this month. So that can get you in the mood.
Yeah, that normally helps, to be fair.
Yeah.
Was it Krampus we did last year?
So
yeah, that was a good one.
Gremlins we did last year.
Gremlins, God, Krampus was 2 years ago. Okay. I may just have to binge them all because fuck it. It's that time of year.
We did Krampus, Black Christmas, and Gremlins.
Yes.
So we've done the bangers.
Yeah. But this is one that we have not covered yet. And we have not, it is also not a festive film. We are aware we're in December, but fuck it. Like, we're trying to drag the horror just a little bit longer. And also because of the recent passing of Tony Todd, we thought this would be a nice one to cover. So if that hasn't given it away already, we are covering the 1992 horror mystery Candyman. Intrigued by local legends, Helen investigates the myths and superstitions surrounding the one-armed Candyman. However, she confronts her worst nightmare when a series of murders start taking place. Katie, what were your first impressions of this?
Oh God, I don't even remember the first time I watched this, but I remember really enjoying it, and I've seen it quite a few times since then, and I've just always loved it. And I think as I've gotten older, I've appreciated it a lot more, just for like what it's about, and that it's not just, you might think from maybe like, I don't know, posters or trailers or something that it is just a bit of a silly sort of slasher film. But when you actually watch it, it's a lot more than that. It's kind of more like a Phantom of the Opera sort of vibe, kind of mysterious, clever. There's like a lot you can kind of like learn from the film as well. So I think there's a lot more to it. And I just think it's a great film, and Tony Todd's just absolutely amazing in it. So what do you think?
I think a lot very similar. Yeah, I think it's one of those, I cannot remember the first time I watched this. But I think it's one of those that kind of like stays with you, and it's always, you'll always find yourself like referencing it, or it just kind of, there's a lot to it. I love the fact that it's kind of like built around those like superstitions, and because I think that happens a lot. I know we've joked about it before, like the town we kind of grew up in or went to school in, there was like the local folklore and the local fears, and I think that's always a really cool thing to like investigate and play on. So I did kind of like how it unraveled, and I think I like that it leaves you still with questions as well. So I don't know, and again, like Tony Todd's brilliant, but I think in my head, we've said this before with like Silence of the Lambs, I keep getting a shout out at the moment, but I always forget how little he's actually in this, like, because he's on the screen for like less than 10 minutes, but he's such a big presence that you just think he's there like so much more. It's so weird.
Yeah, that's true. It's so like Hannibal Lecter in that sense.
Yeah, because he was only like, what was it, like 17 minutes screen time or something, something ridiculous. And it's like these massive terrifying characters that scare the shit out of us for years, and we only ever saw him for 10 minutes.
That's crazy. Well, yeah, because I think it's 30 minutes in. I think that's when Helen sees him at the car park, I'm pretty sure. I think it's about 30 minutes in, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Especially when he is literally the title character. And it's like, oh yeah, no. But yeah, the fact that he can, like, you know, terrorize generations of people's nightmares for years and years and years in under 10 minutes is fucking great. The funny thing is, I think this is the only Candyman that I've seen, because it's a trilogy, and there's even a more recent one, and I realized, I was like, I haven't actually seen any of the others. Like, I guess what I'm doing tonight. I don't know how I haven't. I think I watched this one, got really scared, and then I was just like, I'm not going to bother with the others.
I don't think I've seen any of the others. I've seen the remake, but I've not seen the sequels. So yeah, I've not. I'd like to, yeah, but like you say, like, now I've rewatched Candyman, I don't really know why I haven't.
No, I don't know what comes next. Like, but again, he's one of those characters where he's supernatural, so you can bring him back without having to do this whole big fucking thing.
Yeah.
So it'll be good. There you go. We'll be texting each other later. Like, so in number 2, when it does this,
this is what happens. Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's great. Like, and all the behind the scenes sort of aspects of it as well. Like, I've read up that, like, Virginia Madsen just had like a really amazing time on set as well. And I think her and Tony Todd really got on quite well. I think she did quite a nice tribute to him when he did die. And I think that they just like got on really well, and they really like both like pushed themselves in this role so much. Like, there are behind the scenes kind of, I mean, I'm sure you know about the whole bee situation. Don't know if we want to get into that now.
Let's go straight in. I think this is the thing. I think this was, even as I was watching this, I was like, this episode is probably going to be more about behind the scenes. Just because there is so much to talk about. So yeah, let's just get straight into it.
Okay, let's do it.
Tell us about the bees, Katie.
Well, there were real bees on this film. There were honeybees, and they were controlled by Norman Gary, who previously handled bees on other films. So the film used more than 200,000 real honeybees throughout, and most of the crew were wearing like protective clothing to protect them, but I think at least every single person on the set got stung. Apparently Tony Todd negotiated a bonus of $1,000 for each of the 23 bee stings that he got.
To be fair, if I had to put bees in my mouth, I'd make that negotiation too.
Exactly, yeah. So I think what happened was he wore a mouth guard to like protect him from obviously like swallowing any of the bees. But apparently there was one that he could feel that was crawling down the back of his throat when he was filming. And then obviously the scene was done and he was just like, yeah, getting them all out. But I'm so glad he did do that though, because it is such an infamous, it's such a famous scene in the film, and it looks so good as well.
It's if that had been done with CGI, it wouldn't still look as good as it does now, which we've said many times before. But I just, again, that whole idea of like them in his mouth, because obviously you don't know the stoppers there when you're watching the film, or even if you do, you kind of forget. That whole idea is horrific, and the fact they're all over his body and everything, and that's how he died. It just adds such an element of fear. Because this is it, like, you hear a story, you're like, oh, you know, it's Candyman. So if this was your first time watching, you'd be like, what the fuck are all the bees about? So you obviously have to watch the film and learn all. But I just think, like, when you see that image, you're like, what's with the bees? Like, and then when you get to it, you're like, oh god, no. And I think it's amazing. I did read somewhere that, as you say, so a lot of the bees were bred for the film, because they had to like make sure they were the right age. So they wanted them to be, I think it was 12. I was going to say weeks. I'm trying to find it if it was 12 days or 12 weeks. I think it was weeks, because then they would be big enough to look like adult bees, but their stingers wouldn't cause too much of an effect. So they had to be like a peak age. Otherwise, they'd have looked really tiny. So it was all of that, like trying to make sure minimal damage was done. And obviously, like the scene with them in the toilet, there was no water in the toilet or anything, but they put some like queen bee scent in there. so that all the bees would just swarm in automatically. Because that's the thing, if you can find the queen bee or replicate that, the bees will just follow.
Yeah.
So they're a weirdly easy animal to tame. Not that I recommend anyone try to do it or get them in there. How like that stopper must have had like queen bee scent on it to get them in his mouth.
Yeah, it must have done. Yeah, because there must have been something
Yeah.
for them to be able to like to want to go in there.
Or he had the queen bee in his mouth, which if that was the one that got swallowed, he'd have been fucked. Because bees will do anything to find their queen.
Yeah, no, I don't. Well, luckily, I don't think he swallowed anything. I think it was just crawling down the back. But luckily, I think when they shouted cut, they managed to get it all out of him. But yeah, what a fucking trooper.
I think I just saw as well, it took 45 minutes for them all to come out.
Oh
It took both Tony Todd and I 45 minutes just to get the bees off. So that's fucking crazy. I think at that point you just have to like, yeah, I really just had to go into this Zen sort of place. And the short takes were really short. I was like, yeah, I get that. Because can you imagine having to be in that for like a long time? You would just have to like meditate your way through it.
Oh my God.
It's so mad.
Well, talking of Zen as well, apparently, so when Virginia Madsen Helen would be looking at the Candyman, it was almost like she was like transfixed on him. And apparently the director, Bernard Rose, actually did do some hypnotherapy on Virginia Madsen at some points where she actually did become hypnotized. So some of those scenes where you see her looking at Tony Todd and looking at Candyman, it could be that she actually was hypnotized at the time. So that's why it looks so real, because it probably was.
Again, reality.
I know.
That's fucking crazy. That's so funny. No, because the other thing I saw about them as well is how they wanted it to be. I'm trying to find the wording just because I think it's worded really nicely, but they wanted the relationship between Helen and Candyman not to be like fear and not to be like all that. It was almost meant to be romantic. So they actually had them take like ballroom lessons together to like build up that chemistry. So that when they were doing scenes together, there was like that closeness. And I was like, you can absolutely see that actually. And it was always a little bit it was weird because obviously she really, really feared him. And there was the scene of her like in the hospital bed and he was like floating above her. Like that all seemed like fear. But then as the film progressed and it like got further on, you were like, there is like a spark there.
Yeah, it's so true. And it never really had that, you never really had that same relationship like, you know, like Sidney Prescott does with Ghostface, or like, you know, whoever fucking Nancy has with Freddie. Like it is a very different kind of relationship.
Yeah.
And that's why I mentioned Phantom of the Opera at the beginning, because Tony Todd himself said he's always wanted to find his own personal Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt like it was, because it was like this woman kind of under this like ghost spell, and that's how it felt. And it is true, it did feel like a very different relationship between them to what you normally see, like with a victim and a villain.
Well, even at the end, you almost feel like she kind of just accepted it.
Yeah.
Like it didn't feel like she was suffering. Like,
No.
don't get me wrong, that's not a nice fate for anyone, but it didn't feel unwelcome, I guess. I will also quickly, because I just said it while I was trying to find the other fact that I had. So the bees were bred specifically for the film, but they were supposed to be 12 hours old, not 12 days, not 12 whatever else I said. 12 weeks. 12 hours is how quick a bee grows. So again, the fact they would have, say, if they were filming that at 8 a.m, the bees were being bred the night before, like ready to go, or like, yeah, that's fucking crazy.
It's mental. I will say about the score as well, the music, I thought is just, it's so iconic. Like when you hear it, it is just Candyman all over as well. Like the way he is, like he's so demure that like that kind of music, so mindful. Like he is very much, that music is just kind of fits him and his personality like perfectly, I think.
Well, we were literally joking about this. I was gonna say, we were literally joking about this right before we started, where it was like when someone says Candyman, your brain either goes to this and you can hear that music, or you're like, Candyman, the Candyman. I was like, there's no in between.
No, it's one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
But it was composed by Philip Glass, and according to him, he said it's become a classic, so I still make money from that score. I get checks every year.
Wow.
But it really is just a beautiful piece of music, and like the intro, I thought, like with the title card and then that music playing, and also when Helen is in the fire, in like the fire pit thing, the music's playing there as well. And it goes so perfectly with the film. I think it's a great choice for the film.
So on the bonfire, that's the fact I was just trying to find, and now I can't bloody find it.
Bonfire, that's the word I was looking for, not fire pit.
Yeah, fire pit. No, that's right. I know what you meant, the big one. So I didn't get a chance to look a lot into this, so I might try in a second. But the original story takes place in a fictional British housing project called Bob's Corner in the late 70s, while the movie is set in 90s Chicago and a real-life slum called Cabrini Green, which I'll also come back to in a second. But the change in setting also makes the bonfire scene seem out of place, as the original, the bonfire, is part of the traditional Guy Fawkes Night celebrations. Which again, like, yes, it doesn't seem that out of place, because I guess I don't know how random it is in America to just like have a big stack of rubbish. But like, again, if you see that in November in England, it's because bonfire night's coming.
Yeah.
But that does make sense, that's a very English thing to have a bonfire that time of year, but it's not an American holiday.
Yeah, it does make complete sense. But also, when I was watching it at Candyman, I never questioned. I was never like, why are these people having a bonfire? I just completely went with it. So clearly it does work.
Because I guess they weren't having a bonfire. It was a pile of rubbish that they set fire to.
Yeah.
So again, I didn't even question it, because I was like, well, they're trying to kill the person. They're trying to kill Candyman.
Yeah.
But instead, like in England, just a bonfire being there, like, yeah, it would have just been burnt a few days early. So I said, that's so fucking interesting that actually they just tied, because it like originally set in England, they just tied it in. And I feel like if there are any American listeners, we have to give a little. So everyone I ever meet who's like American, and they're like, so what is Guy Fawkes Night? And it's so funny trying to explain it, because I think like when we were in school, we just always kind of got like we probably got the full explanation, but my brain didn't retain it. So I was like, oh, some guy tried to blow up Parliament and now we celebrate him. And then you have to be like, there was a bit more to it, I think.
Yeah, there's a little bit more to do with it, but that's the gist.
But it was, there was actually, I think it was a group of 5 or 6 men, but one of them was called Guy Fawkes, who tried to blow up Parliament. But the reason we celebrate it is because they actually failed. So it's celebrating that the king survived. Whereas nowadays, I feel like people would not for the king, but people would be a lot happier blowing up Parliament, because no one seems to like politics or our politicians anymore. Yeah. So it's quite funny that, again, it's just this holiday. It's very British that we just celebrate the guy that tried to blow up all our politics. It's just fucking mad. I do love trying to explain it to people, because you're like, I don't 100% know, because we had like one lesson on it in school.
Yeah, we did. We weren't really told that much about it. We were just kind of like, this is a thing that we do, so just kind of deal with it.
What's even funnier, like, we go on our Instagram if you want to see, because me and Katie went to a bonfire night in Rye recently. But you see like everyone marching through town with fucking massive fire sticks, and then they go and set fire to the giant bonfire. But what I didn't get a picture of, because we were just I'm too short to try and get pictures over the crowd, but they put like a big thing of Guy Fawkes. Like, it's quite common to make, it's not called a mascot. What's it called when there's nobody in it? We make a big fake person.
Effigy.
There's an effigy of Guy Fawkes that goes on the bonfire, and then we set fire to him. But this is the funny thing, again, like, I've seen it in different places where they set fire to celebrities who've been a piece of shit that year, or politicians we disagree with. And it's just like the most English tradition to just passive aggressively set fire to people we don't like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Why
part.
fucking not?
Why fucking not? Why only once a year? Let's do this more. But it's just really funny. But I always find that really interesting when people there's a bunch of people listening right now who are either English or American. They're being like, we fucking know. And we know more than you're saying right now, but it's still fun to share.
It is still fun to share. Like, it is a very strange thing, bonfire night, but everyone just kind of still celebrates it, and we just go with it, and it's just a thing now.
Oh, it's the best night of the year.
Yeah. We had a lovely time.
As I said, I was trying to connect the irony this year that obviously the American political vote happened on our bonfire night, and we were like, again, I was like, nobody over there in England was English who connected that dot. Not that it matters because we couldn't vote anyway, but we're in England burning people who tried to burn down our government while America are all voting for a new president. And I was like, well, this is just funny timing.
Yeah, this is very strange. It's really cool as well that this was a Clive Barker short story. It was based on a short story called The Forbidden. Sorry, Clive Barker is he's from the mind of the Hellraiser films. So you can kind of see that vibe in Candyman, like the dialogue. Like I think there was at one point when Candyman says, "Oh, I assure you that your death will be exquisite."
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite.
Something like that. Like, it's very much like we have such sights to show you in Hellraiser and stuff. Like, they're very similar.
Yeah.
It's kind of dialogue. It's very kind of like posh sort of contemporary horror. It's very like classy horror almost.
it's like that beauty and death sort of idea, which is quite macabre but quite beautiful. It's kind of like being gothic.
Yeah,
seeing the beauty in dark.
That's very true. Yeah, it's almost kind of like the Crow-esque, like very kind of it's
poetic.
Very much like very poetic. Yeah.
Yeah, which is weird when you're like considering how scary this film fucking is, and then it's like, but it's very beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
So one thing that was I did find really interesting, because of the way it was portrayed and because of the the way it was kind of shown as like a really scary like housing area, that was a real to the infamous Cabrini Green housing project, but the producers had to make a deal with the ruling gang members to put them in the movie as extras to ensure the cast and crew's safety during filming. Even with this arrangement, a sniper put a bullet through the production van on the last day of filming, though no one was injured. So that was like a real area, and they literally got the local gang to like give them permission to film there, which is so fucking
crazy.
Mad.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, I was fucking mad. I was like, that's brilliant, but yeah, the fact that someone still shot the van is crazy.
That is crazy. Like, that is real dedication to the film to like do that. And also, I mean, it was worth it because they got these amazing shots, and like the gang members were playing the extras, so it made it a lot more authentic and a way sort of better looking experience. But it was scary.
Although what is actually quite upsetting is so while discussing Cabrini Green, Burnett tells Helen she heard a kid got shot there the other day. Ironically, or upsettingly, on October 13th, 1992, days before the film's release, a boy and real-life resident named Dontrell Davis was killed by a stray bullet while walking to school. The shooter was identified as local gang member Anthony Garrett, who intended to kill a rival. Garrett was convicted of first-degree murder for Davis's death and received a 100-year sentence.
Wow.
Which...
That's so sad.
Yeah. But again, it's like all in that area, and just like shows that kind of like, again, it's not just putting on this like, oh, it's really scary here. Like, it really was a scary area. But fucking, yeah.
Oh God, I didn't know that. That's fucking awful. But yeah, like that's makes it so authentic because it is a real place and real like tragedy does happen.
Yeah.
So around there. So yeah, that's crazy. Speaking of the area, like in terms of the plot, going back to the plot just for a second, when Helen and Bernadette are like exploring basically exploring the grounds of Candyman and kind of working out, and when she goes back and she goes into the bathroom, like she's got balls, she's got no fear, this woman, she just goes for it. Because obviously she's a skeptic, she doesn't believe it's a thing, and then obviously she then gets confronted by the Candyman, who obviously just, turns out to be someone else. He's just he's the head of a local gang.
I hear you looking for Candyman, bitch. Well, you found him.
Yeah, so he's charged for murders attributed to Candyman. So, but it's just when she walks into the bathroom and then all of the other guys are behind him, like it's so I could just feel that fear. And it's like, where's this film gonna go? Because this guy's just like revealed himself as Candyman. Like,
Yeah.
What does this mean? Like, what's gonna happen?
No, it's really fucked up.
Mm.
There was a bit, because you mentioned the bathroom, but there was obviously the part where they're in the bathroom and they realize that people can get into the bathroom through the wall.
Yeah.
But that's not fictional. That has actually happened. So there was like some cases of it where, and I'm trying to find the exact information so that I'm not just making things up about bees again. No, because I did hear about one of the true crime podcasts I listened to, and it was literally that, where like somebody was breaking in via the fucking bathrooms.
That's so creepy.
Really fun creepy. But I think as well, because it was like the houses were getting built so quick, and there was just like literally someone's bathroom was backing straight into someone else's like living room, or like even their bathroom or something, because they were just like, building them really quick and there was like nothing in between. Or it's that whole thing again we've spoken about of like people living in the walls, but then they can access through. And it's really, but yeah, it's like that was based in reality. That wasn't just, oh, we're gonna add this in to spook people. Like, it's just adds yet another fucking creepy layer to this film.
It does. Yeah, it does. I think for a while as well, like, because if you've never seen this film before, you're kind of thinking like, well, what is going to happen in this film? Is it just a guy, like a guy in a gang? Like, is this what this sort of urban legend is all about? And because, like we said earlier, you see Tony Todd in the next like 30 minutes. You don't see him until 30 or so minutes in. You kind of think like, where is this film going to go? And then when he's revealed, it's kind of like it all kind of comes together. And then you think, fuck yeah, like we're going to get some great Tony Todd shots. I mean, he's a handsome guy as well. So no wonder Helen was hypnotized by him, because like that big fucking cool trench coat he's got on, like he looks fucking amazing. He's such an amazing horror villain.
He's so badass. But I think that's the thing. That's the only thing with like slightly older films, is when you go back and watch them, or even if it's your first time watching it, but because you know of the film, like you're there going, well, where's Tony Todd? So even though like you're like haven't seen him half an hour, 40 minutes in, and as you say, somebody else has now been identified as Candyman, you're like, there is a twist coming, because you aren't Tony Todd, and I know he's coming. Like, so I always think that's the only downfall with like as films age, and you have to go back. Not the only downfall, but the main one in a film like this, where like you're like, shit, I know Tony Todd is going to appear. I've seen the images. But I do think that's I think you're right.
Yeah.
One thing, and I should have mentioned it when you talk about the music, but one thing I didn't even realize they did, but they actually, so anytime he's on screen, anytime he's walking, he doesn't have footsteps. So the sound people took them out so that it gave him more of that like ghost-like presence, because he didn't make any noise as he walked. And I thought just little details like that, it make this film what it is. That's so creepy. That's so cool. That's just so well thought out. Because they could have ignored that, but they just didn't. And I love that for them.
Yeah, because even if it was kept in, people would kind of think, oh, well, he's a ghost, but he's supernatural. Like, you can just accept it. But the fact that they did go that step forward, like that step further, and actually take them out, is really cool.
6'5" is a heavy ghost. Like, you could just. One other thing I did make a note of, again talking about like real life horror, is one of the fucking professors turning around to Heather, and I forgot her friend's name.
Bernadette.
Thank you, Heather and Bernadette. I mean, like, they say, oh, my two most beautiful girl students, grad students. I was like, well, I can't read my own writing.
So how are two most beautiful graduate students getting along then?
I literally just put fucking ooh. Like, again, it's that, and it's that not even. Like, that didn't even seem like a bad thing to say once upon a time.
Yeah.
He's like, you're literally their fucking teacher, their fucking professor. Like, what the fuck are you doing? And that wasn't even considered a bad part of the film. And I was like, oh no.
No. And there's a lot, like I was saying earlier in this, where you could you could learn so much from this film, like given the history and all this stuff, but there is so much that like hasn't aged well. And there's one thing that really didn't age well, which I learned, was when there's a confrontation between Helen and the Candyman, and the writers wanted them to kiss at that point, to kind of make it seem like more of a kind of quote unquote romantic story. But the production company refused because they didn't want a interracial kiss in a film.
And again, when you're looking at this and you're like, oh, well, this came out in 1992, it doesn't feel that long ago.
No.
It was 32 years ago. And it was only 32 years ago, and they were already that well, not already, they were still that racist. Did they not kiss though? I thought he kissed her when he had the bees in his mouth.
Yeah, but more of a romantic kiss. More of a like a passionate kind of vibe, more than less of a kind of sort of horror thing.
Yeah.
It was done more, but the studio didn't want it.
The white lady had to be willing, and they didn't want that.
It's
while we're sat here going, it's Tony Todd, kiss him.
It's Tony Todd. Like, are you joking? Have you seen the man? But like, it's just, I just also think that would have been a really nice addition to the film. So it's such a shame that they didn't go with that, because it would have really like separated them from, other antagonists and victims. Antagonists and bad guys. It would have really like separated them from that. So I think it is a shame that they didn't put that in. But
and again, it's one of those where it's like, because they're closed-minded and short-sighted and fucking racist. Yeah, actually, they've done their film injustice in the long run.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, we don't have the experience or probably enough information to talk too much about the kind of the race sort of connotations in the film. Obviously, it is a huge part of the film. Obviously, Candyman's backstory is about an African-American man and the son of a slave, and falls in love with a white woman, but then her father sends a lynch mob after him. So the mob saws off his right hand, smeared him with honeycomb stolen, and then attracting bees that stung him to death. So there's obviously all of that as well. And their thesis is also about how the residents use the Candyman to like cope with racial inequality and things. So there's a lot there about racial inequality and the Candyman. And there's no denying the fact that, Tony Todd, being a black man, being the face of this new horror villain, is a big thing and an important thing, because he's such a well-known actor in the horror world mainly because of this role. So it's not something that we should shy away from talking about, but also we aren't the audience to have all the knowledge on this. So I would recommend like looking up some stuff with that side of things, because we're not the experts on this kind of thing. But I think it is important to speak about it a little bit.
Although, because I didn't know about the kiss being cut, that actually makes me angrier that it was cut when you consider Candyman's backstory, where it's literally the writers being like, oh yeah, we know racism was really bad, but but we're also still going to do it. And it's like, hang on, no, just because you didn't kill him doesn't mean you're not racist. Like, racism's a spectrum. Like, you can still be a cunt. That actually makes me more I was like reacting, my face gives up. But that makes me angrier, because it was literally in the fucking film and then they still did it. Like, you've learned nothing, you fucking pricks.
I know, it was the studio that didn't want it, but the studio would have had to have read the story. They would have had to have known about Candyman.
That's
so
true.
You're completely right. Like, why wouldn't they have just said, yeah, of course?
That's true. I blamed the writers, but the writers present the script, other people cut stuff. So I'll take it back from the writers. Directing my anger at the wrong people.
No, the writers wanted it. They wanted it in. I feel like it was more the studio that were anti it, but it just doesn't. You're right, it doesn't make any sense. And it also would have been, I think, a really effective scene. So it would have also shown a lot about their relationship as well. So I don't know why. It just seems crazy to me that they wouldn't have done that, but hey. That's
yeah.
what they wanted to do.
Sorry, bit of a change of topic. But obviously at the end with the bonfire,
Mhm.
I forgot what they called them, in that housing area, which I've just blanked the name on, but with the bonfire, and then all of a sudden it's like the, I was going to call them like teenagers. I think they're quite young teenagers, but they're like, we're ready to fight for our town, fight for our home, which I fucking love. They're going to come and bring down the Candyman. Everyone comes outside. Did they think that Helen was Candyman? And is that why they dropped the hook in her grave? That's the only bit I didn't get.
No, I think that was more because like Helen saved her child. It was more kind of like she kind of in sense sort of defeated the Candyman. So it was kind of like a sort of tribute to her, I think, to drop that in there. I didn't get it.
It was like a thank you for killing him.
I think so, yeah. I think it was like they all turned up at her funeral.
Yeah.
They kind of like, yeah, sort of, it was more out of a mark of respect. That's how I took it.
Because I couldn't figure, because so if Anne-Marie thought that Helen had stole her baby, and then all of a sudden she turns up at the end with her baby, like this, the bit I couldn't understand was, did she think she was returning the baby as Candyman and being like, oh, I'm sorry, I've had a moment of like guilt, I'm bringing you back your baby, and then they came to see her funeral to be like, oh good, she is actually in the ground, we're now safe? Or was it a thank you? I couldn't figure it out if they were checking she was dead, or if they were coming to say thanks.
I think it was more of like a pay respects thing, because they saw a hook go into the bonfire. So I assume at that point they must have thought, okay, well, Candyman is dying kind of essentially with her as well. But then she makes like the last ditch effort to rescue the baby, and then she does. So I think it's out of respect. And then obviously putting the hook into the grave is kind of like, yeah, a mark of respect, like a thank you for, for this. For kind of, I guess, saving the little baby Anthony's life.
I got really confused, because I was like, if that mum still thinks she's Candyman, even if they find the hook, I was like, well, maybe they just thought she was Candy. Like, surely that's more evidence that she's Candyman.
I think it was that, and then I guess like at the end as well, she sort of turns into, she sort of has, there's the mark on the walls, doesn't she? And there's like a sort of thing of her. So I think it is more out of a respect thing, because at the end of the day, like, she did save her son.
Yeah.
So I think it's more on that side of things, but you can take it in different ways.
Even if she was like, okay, you're Candyman, she's still, it's still like, you came to your senses at the end, you saved my son, thank you. But I didn't know which way it was. So I was like,
I know what you mean.
Yeah. I was like, do they still think she's Candyman? Or I lost me. And I was like, I couldn't remember how I took it the first time I watched this, but rewatching it, I was like, I actually can't remember or can't figure out which way it is.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, I don't know for sure, but that's kind of how I took it. But as you said at the beginning, Tel, like, I think that like you can take these and things in different ways. So maybe it was also that. But yeah, that's how I saw it anyway. I felt like it was kind of put to rest almost, like the whole Candyman thing. But obviously turns out it wasn't put to rest, because obviously the ex-husband gets a visit.
I did just quickly look at I love as well the people that come over to try and put her out from fire, because again, it was one of those, like, before they try and figure out if you're good or bad, you're someone in need of help. So I was like, beautiful spirit.
It was like the community.
Yeah. So 1, lovely community. 2, can we talk about the shit piece of husband?
Yeah, let's absolutely do it.
What the fuck was with that guy?
I know. Dickhead.
Absolute fucking what?
I know.
Just the worst.
He was the worst. He would never like show up to anything. Now we know why. He was flirting with all of his students. Gross.
And then it's like, as soon as his wife's having a fucking like traumatic experience and mental health intervention, oh great, I'll move in my mistress. Like, did he just think she was locked up for good? Did he just think she was never coming home? And oh well, I need a bang maid.
I know, it's fucking crazy.
So the fact she walks in while the mistress is painting, and I was like, well, you guys are very comfortable.
Yeah, she was just walking in like she was like making it her own place. It's like, excuse me?
Oh, and then at the end, oh, but now I feel bad. Like I should have. The fact that Mistress was at the funeral as well. Like I understand supporting her guy, but like you're a piece of shit. You had no problem sleeping with a married man.
Yeah, that was fucked. Well, that also, I think her being at the funeral was also like such a take on like his character and how he is, like the fact that he would bring her there.
Yeah.
Uh but then she gets her revenge at the end with he's obviously very grief stricken, he's very guilty about what he's been doing.
I love that the Mistress
yeah.
as well is so like fed up already. And I'm like, well, this is a healthy relationship, clearly.
Yeah, she's fed up already. He's kind of finding her annoying.
He's
Like,
still in love with his ex.
yeah, this isn't what they thought it would be, basically.
But they got everything they wanted.
It's the classic guy going off with the younger girl vibe, isn't it? Like, you know,
So cliche.
so cliche.
Again, it was a cliche now. Back in those days, well, maybe it still was a cliche, but I feel like they started the cliches.
Yeah.
But also I was slightly gutted that Helen's name wasn't Mary, to just bring it full circle when she was like at the end.
That would have been pretty good. That would have been very good, actually. Well, also you say Candyman 5 times and Bloody Mary's 3, so
Right? 5 times is a lot of effort. Like you've really got to want to summon this guy. Like, which is hilarious at the beginning. Sorry, literally jumping back and forth. But when they're like, oh, we should go and see Candyman in the mirror as foreplay, I was like, are you inviting him to join in? What the fuck is going on? Like,
yeah, that's the guy in that who plays Billy is actually Ted Raimi, who's an extremely famous actor, director, wrote the Evil Dead films, Spider-Man trilogy. So it's really funny that he's extremely young Sam Raimi in this, but yeah.
That's really funny. I did also love that it was like, yeah, you have to say his name 5 times. And then we obviously hear the main story. And then we see Helen writing up her notes and we hear the tape recorder where they say Candyman 3 times. And then the cleaner immediately says Candyman. So she makes it 4 straight away.
So Billy began. He looked in the mirror and he said, Candyman, Candyman, Candyman.
Candyman, huh?
And I was like, but then they carried on talking and somebody else then said it a 5th time. So I was like, okay, does it have to be unbroken? Because I'm pretty sure when they were talking in the mirror, she said it the 5th time. Or is it like there was no mirror, there was too many people around? I don't know. But I just thought it was really funny how like they immediately made it 4 and then cut it. And I was like, that's fucking genius.
Yeah. That's really clever. I didn't actually pick up on that. But yeah, I mean, I thought it had to be like in the mirror, lights out, like kind of vibe, like Bloody Mary. But
maybe. Yeah. So yeah, maybe it was because it was Candyman's based on a combination between Bloody Mary and the Hookman.
Okay.
So hence you can see both quite easily. But yeah, I just thought it'd be really cool if to complete it, they'd made Helen Mary and then she became the next legend.
That was cool. Well, apparently there's talks of that Helen was supposed to sort of be portrayed as like a reincarnation of Candyman's wife.
Because again, when you see her like in the painting, I was trying to figure that out. I was like, either she's a reincarnation or has she been alive for like all this time, but her memory just resets every like 20 years. So Candyman has to come and like woo her again, like keep that romance alive.
That's one way to do it, I guess.
Keep it fresh, just you know, a little bit of amnesia. But I just thought it was like, oh yeah, I wasn't sure if it was that where it was like, oh, is it reincarnation or is it she's actually always been there and just keeps forgetting? I feel like that would be me. I'd just forget that I'd been alive that long. I'd be like, wait, what?
But yeah, I think that would have been kind of cool that like, you know, he's trying to find his love again and then has found her. That kind of reminds me of like Dracula when like he finds Mina and like he like searches years and years and years, millions of years to find her again. So it's that kind of, like you said earlier, that gothic sort of narrative, which is
which again
I can get on that.
Yeah, which again is making Tony Todd fucking Mr. Green Flag. the Candyman like doing all of this for the woman he loves reincarnated, and then you've got the piece of shit husband who can't even keep it in his pants while his wife's in a mental institute. Like fucking hell, like
Yeah,
Candyman's been in love for like decades at this point, centuries.
I know who I'd rather be with.
Yeah,
that's
find
for
yourself
sure.
a Candyman.
Well,
Minus the murder.
yeah, exactly.
But in our defense as well, he was resting peacefully and people keep harassing him. So
Well, he's being forgotten about and he needs to be remembered. So he's just like, right, I've got to kill again. I've just got to do this.
also he was like brutally murdered. I do understand like
Okay.
not like the people he's coming back to kill weren't part of that, but they are also antagonizing him. So, you know, we're really seeing Candyman right now.
Yeah, for sure. I did want to very quickly just touch on Tony Todd's career in specifically in horror.
Yeah.
Because I just think like we have to mention it. I'm only obviously going to name a few because there are so many out there. But 1990, he was in Night of the Living Dead when he played Ben. What else was there? Obviously Candyman, The Crow, Candyman Farewell to the Flesh. Let's see. Candyman 3, Day of the Dead, Final Destination 2, Scarecrow Slayer, Final Destination 3, Hatchet, of course, which we covered recently with Shake the Candy, Hatchet 2, Final Destination 5. There was just a lot of stuff that he was in. More Night of the Living Dead things. Victor Crowley, he was in Hellfest, Candy Corn, and it's just Tales from the Hood 3. It just goes on and on and on, and it's just crazy.
I think he had like, I think it was over 100 titles between films and TV in his 40-year career.
Insane.
Like, did he ever take a break?
It seems it really, yeah, I feel like. And then the last film he is in is the next Final Destination film called Bloodlines, where he's obviously back as Death. So we'll see him in that. But he was such an iconic horror person in horror, and as a person of color, I think it was just such an amazing thing to have him like in the horror community. So yeah, it's such a sad loss, I think, for the horror world. But well, I mean, what a CV he's got.
It's incredible.
Mm.
One thing as well, I only found out today, and again, I'm just trying to find the exact information so that I'm not getting it wrong. But so this is again why we love Tony Todd, is because I think he was very privileged and very partly because, you know, he was a big name, but also I think partly because because he could stand up for himself and what he thought was right. So when they started seeing the what's the bloody Freddy versus Jason and everything started getting really popular, they actually pitched the idea of Candyman versus Leprechaun. And I'm trying to find the quote and now I can't find it. That's really irritating. But he was literally like, absolutely not, no way, like that wouldn't happen. But I love that because it could have been so easy to like just take the money and make a ridiculous film. But you know, Candyman wasn't that type of character, so I think it would have been weird, as he was just like, no, it's not going to work, don't want to do it. And like,
Wow.
And I think I love him a bit more for that, for actually saying no, because I can't even imagine how that would have gone.
That's crazy. Yeah, good for him. Because also like Leprechaun and Candyman are so different. Like Candyman has such a history behind him. There's a bit more of a serious backstory with Candyman. Like it's a very scary story in a lot of ways, and it's a bit more of a serious film than Leprechaun is. It's just such a weird combination.
Yeah, and I think again the stories don't even match. Like Candyman isn't going to go and steal his gold. He doesn't need it. He's there for love. Like he literally isn't that. It's just, yeah. So I was just like, that just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that he saw that and didn't go for it. But annoyingly, I cannot find his exact quote. So if I find it, I'll pop it in. But I just thought that was brilliant.
Wow. There we go. That's fucking mad. Thank God he said no to that. Well done, Tony.
Right? The role was also supposed to go to Eddie Murphy, but I keep mentioning his height because the part of the reason he got the role was because of how tall he was. Because they actually didn't think Eddie Murphy was tall enough. Again, I also think if it was Eddie Murphy, it would have completely changed the vibe.
It would have as well, because Tony Todd has such a distinct way about him, like his voice and just the way he is. And I can't see anyone else playing Candyman the way that he did. So yeah, not saying Eddie Murphy wouldn't have done a good job, but I think one of the other reasons was that they couldn't afford him, because like Eddie Murphy was pretty well known and successful at the time. But I just feel like, I don't know.
Rather than say we can't afford you, they were like, you're too short.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I just think Tony Todd's got something about him.
Yeah, you are right though. Every time it was like just his voice. And like you couldn't see him yet. It was like the start of the film was just his voice.
Yeah.
So commanding.
They will say that I have shed innocent blood. What's blood for, if not for shedding?
And it's just like you can't talk over that. Like,
No,
it's
you can't.
just so capturing. It's amazing.
It's crazy. I mean, even in Hatchet, I was like captivated by his voice. And that's just a stupid slasher film. But even then, I was just like, wow, I love you.
Yeah, he's so good.
Yeah.
Well, yes. All the mad respect to Tony Todd. And he's left an insane legacy.
He has.
But I believe this was one of his favorite roles. Again, I believe I read that somewhere. And now I can't find any of my fucking notes. This is why I write things down and don't save them on my phone. But I believe this was one of his favorites. So do we think we would survive one of Tony Todd's favorites, Candyman?
I don't know. I think it'd be very hard. Once you're under his spell, I'm not sure that you can get away from him.
Do you technically survive if you're Helen?
I guess because you're not, well, you are dead.
But you're not dead like the others are dead.
Yeah, but you've come back as this kind of vengeful ghost. Like, do you want to be that?
I also think Chantelle's a really stupid name to say in the mirror 5 times. Some girl in trackies turns up.
Chanel.
Really shit makeup. Right, we're going down the park for a 6-pack. I'm a Buffett.
And then you turn up.
Do you want to watch a horror film with me? I'm bored.
No. Yeah.
I'd get summoned halfway through like practicing SFX makeup and be like, hi.
So this is awkward.
This is embarrassing. Can you send me back? Say my name backwards. Yeah, I don't think I have the right name to survive as a Helen. I think I'm
That's
done.
hilarious. Okay. That's a valid reason. I don't think I have one, other than I think that I'm just not sure. I think that he's got a good kill count behind him. So I'm just not sure I'm capable of surviving. So I'm going to say no as well, I think.
To be fair, did you ever do Bloody Mary in the mirror?
I never did.
No, I never did. I haven't got the balls to.
No, I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, yeah, I wouldn't do the whole Candyman thing in the first place. So yeah, I never did the Bloody Mary thing.
Yeah. No, I was just curious because it was something that obviously circulated. But I think even like sleepovers and that, we always pussied out.
Yeah, no, because I think there was a part of me that was like, no, this could be real.
Yeah, so that 1% chance something comes out the mirror.
Yeah, so even if it's 1% chance, I'm not risking it. No.
But what was your favorite spooky moment, and what are you giving this spookies out of 5?
My favorite spooky moment is when he kills the doctor and literally guts him basically from behind. It's probably the goriest kill in the film, but it's just so shocking and kind of like out of the blue almost, because at this point we've kind of just seen Candyman just kind of be around. And there's been like certain really cool shots of him, but there's not been a lot of like violence at this point. So I really loved that bit. It kind of threw me off guard a little bit, and also it just looked amazing. The sound effects were horrible. It was just great. And I'm going to give this a 4 spookies out of 5. I think it's a classic. I think it's kind of a bit of an underrated banger. And I think it's brilliant, and I just think more people should be talking about it. And I just think it's a brilliant film, and the soundtrack is fucking slaps. So yeah, soundtrack score, not soundtrack. What about you?
I think my favorite spooky moment is going to be the bees in the mouth, because I think it's one of those where obviously hook for his hand. I think that's a genuinely scary primary, like all his kills are really scary, but we've seen gore before. This is the only film I know of where you see a guy with hundreds of bees in his actual mouth, and I think that you just like there's no other film that's done that. And I think I love that they committed, and I love that they went for it, and I love that it paid off, and I love that they did it for real. So I'm going to go with that bit, but I also think I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. I think it's brilliant, as you say. I think it's done a shit ton for horror. I think people still talk about it, but not enough. But as we keep joking, if you do say Candyman, a good half of people are thinking this. So yeah, I do think it's one that, I'm surprised more people aren't talking about it at the moment. Although I feel like some people may not want to right away. People might, processing our loss of Tony Todd in their own way. So but I'm sure it'll become a fan favorite again and again and again. I think every 10 years or so it'll keep popping back up.
Definitely. Nice.
Amazing. Well, that was our Candyman episode. Check us out again over the next couple of weeks. We may be having some festive specials. So yes, we'd love you to join in. So follow us on social so you can see what we're up to. You can watch the films along and join in. Until then, bye.
Bye-bye. Don't die.
So in sync. It was our best one yet.
Yay for us.